And you're all still in the office.
Yeah. We haven't had a lot of success with the remote. I didn't put any effort into it. So, that's probably on us. Maybe I need to be involved in that, but that's not something I want to own. So I don't want remote people at this moment.
Insurance dudes are on a mission to escape being handcuffed by our agencies.
How? By uncovering the secrets to creating a predictable, consistent, and profitable agency sales machine.
I am Craig Pretzinger.
I am Jason Feldman.
We are agents.
We are insurance dudes. Are you 100% remote, George?
I would put 98%, yes. We have service people, and now in one of the offices, we've turned it into like a hybrid because now they're in like a rotation. So they're working in office 2-3 times a week, and then the other 2 or 3 times, whatever it lands on, they're at home.
Would you talk a little bit about managing that process? Because I still haven't had a ton of success with the remote thing, aside from during COVID, but different story. So we have a few groups so the carrier specific groups or the iDudes group, we see it a lot, people asking about remote, which indicates that it seems to be a struggle, right? What are some of a couple tips that you could maybe offer that would help people?
You're interviewing for the right people. It goes back to, again, the culture fit is we're a remote culture. So are you self-accountable or do I have to be on you, the entire day, right? I'm not trying to be on you the entire day. And that's why everybody posts their numbers at the end of the day, right? We also have a daily meeting, daily sales meeting, and that's kind of like our halftime. Because we do it in the early afternoon. So it's like, hey, what do we do the first half of the day? What do we got to do to meet or exceed our goals the second half of the day? I mean, from a process perspective or like a logistical perspective, I have like a freaking mini FedEx store in my house because I'm like constantly sending equipment back and forth. So yeah, that's fun.
That's fun.
Yeah. For us, it's been interesting because, we're in California. We got a whole can of worms out here. But part of the agency I'm kind of enjoying because we were going hard for a while. This year, we have sales goals. So we're hitting those sales goals, but we've been 100% remote, 100%. My office manager had to come in one day to fix a computer. So that's the only thing that we did. But
do you still have a brick and mortar or did you close that down?
To be honest, and I don't know how much the thems are going to be upset, but I put it remote and then I still have an office.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So it's my office, do whatever. I can walk around in my boxer shorts if I want to, which is nice. I don't wear boxers. I wear briefs, but I could walk around in the Speedos if I wanted to. But I like having an office, like a location, because I have way too many kids at home. And then just in case if anybody needs to come in. And I've used this as the safety place. Like, okay, hey, if anything goes wrong, then we have the hub to come back to. But man, it's been really good. I just talked to my office manager this morning, and I talked to her here and there, but I mean, not a ton because I've had her since I started. And we have our salesperson back. He's hitting his numbers. We're doing a lot with referrals. Like a lot with referrals. We're hitting some great numbers and 80% of it's hitting from referrals now. So that's nice. It's funny. Like one of the things that I've been realizing is I'll jump in when needed, but I never jump in like I used to. Like I would jump in like, hey, a couple days are slow, right? And I don't do that now. Like I will wait it out, which is very painful for me. And then I'll have a conversation. So, and when I have that conversation, like all we do is so let me take a step back. What I do to track my people, it's only behavior based. So they have a spreadsheet that they fill out every day, and it's all behaviors. There's calls, whatever, right? How many, like the type of call that's going out, talk time, like all the things, because we put together a formula. Hey, if Sally, we'll just say Sally's not real, but if Sally's doing all these different behaviors, then I'm totally cool. And so like, of yesteryear, we used to do like screen recordings here and there and stuff like that. But like, we don't do any of that stuff anymore. It's just, I look at the behaviors. Like if the behaviors are there, then it should be good. And then I'll meet with them every once in a while. And I've been doing this over time. So like we've had just one person in the office for a year now, and then it went to nobody in the office. So then I would jump on people when the behaviors would slow down, but I would do it too soon instead of giving them the opportunity, because they're people, right? There's going to be a bad day here and there or whatever, but I give them the ability to self-correct. Since I've been able to do that more this year, now they are, and when I talk to them, I say, listen, this is all on you. I'm not going to hover over you. Like, if you can't like, if you can't self-motivate, these are the things that are needed. Like, I see, last week you had a rough week, or 2 weeks ago you had a rough week, and you need to be the one to self-correct, because I'm not going to do it. I refuse to do it. So since I've done that and I've pulled back more, it's doing well. It's working out really well, actually. So now we don't have anybody in the office, and
Mr. Jason let go.
I had to let go. It was driving me bananas.
I mean, it is pretty amazing, because it's like an illusion to think that we could control all these things, right?
Yeah.
And so, at number one, congratulations, because it's freaking very, very, very difficult to not jump in, right? Especially the way I think that all of us agents are, right? Like, we're hardwired to jump in and help and help and help and help and help and help. Like especially from the days when we're answering phones and helping clients, it's just nonstop, right? It's just nonstop insanity when you're in the trenches. So then when we take ourselves out a little bit, we do it to our people, like how we were doing it before, right? Which is highly ineffective. I mean, we learned here at iDudes, like, managing people like that, what happens, right? Like, it's like jumping in. They don't like it. Yeah. And it's really, really difficult to be discerning and stop yourself. So good job.
That's nice.
It is. It's hard, man. But it's amazing how much better you feel from doing that, right? Like, I mean, I jump in still, but I try to, if I start firing off a text to somebody about something I just thought of, then I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I should just put it on a note and I'll address it at the meeting. And I think everybody feels much smoother when it's like that, right?
It's so much. Yeah. And then a lot of those things the next day, you're like, well, this isn't a big deal. Maybe this might be a big deal. But then all of a sudden it's like self-corrects. The amount of problems that you actually have when you do that boils down, like, you can whittle it down to either a core problem or just a bunch of little problems that go away.
They go away.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I remember when I first stopped taking calls and talking to clients, like, think of all the things that we had in our mind, like, oh, they're all going to leave. Oh, the retention's going to, all these things that you think are going to happen, and none of it happens, right? It's just like, oh, okay, this is the way it is now, right? Like and it's such a relief, but the stress to get to that point is wild, like what we put ourselves through.
I'm just smiling because I'm not there yet. One day.
But see, you can be there right now, but in your mind, you believe that you have to be there.
Well, I think it's different modes, right? You're like, I'm in much smaller mode than either one of you guys, so it requires less. Craig, you're more in cruising mode, and then George, you're in builder mode. Builder mode, you have to be on it. Like, you can't be in Craig, like, you can't travel around like Craig and be a builder mode unless you want to just burn money. You know what I mean? So it's like it's like just different phases of it. And going back to what you said, George, we're all in different phases. And that's what I hate about some of these groups and stuff. Like, and I've been guilty of doing this, is like preaching my doctrine to other people. And it's like, but we're all in different spots. We have different goals. Based on those goals, there's a straight line to get to those goals. And it's going to be different depending on the goal. You know?
100%.
Different fears, different desires, different skills.
Yeah.
Different beliefs.
But builder mode is fun, man. I miss it so much. Like, I miss it so much. It's ridiculous. It was such a good high. Yeah.
Have you ever done a time thing? It's the worst, but it's really good when it's done. Like a time journal. So you track every 15 minutes, you write down what you're doing for the day, and you can do it for as long as you can handle it. But from a day, you'll get a pretty good idea. If you do it every 15 minutes, very difficult. But then you go back and look at it, even wait a couple of days and look at it and go, holy shit, I spent a half hour. And you'll see all these things that you actually can eliminate. that you think you had to do or that catch you off guard and you end up doing because it's easier just to do it. But the problem is we all do these things that, it's just easier if I just handle it. Like I'm the king of it's just easier if I just handle it. And what happens is you spend all day long handling all these things that you shouldn't be handling.
I was texting with the agency a couple of weeks ago. He's like 60, 70 million or something. And it's like a friendly competition and I'm always talking crap to him. And he's like, dude, you're like 3 or 4 reorgs from being where I'm at. And like, that really like made me pause and think like, holy smokes, he has some merit to this. Like there's levels to scaling and how big your organization gets to support that level of demand from not just customers and prospects and marketing to the people themselves and what they need to be successful.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Yeah. And your business has different needs at different stages, right? Like you hit certain places where you can't do anything, like you hit a ceiling unless you change stuff, right? I mean, insurance probably easier to scale from that perspective because it's just like, add more leads, add more callers, just keep adding the tinker toys. But still, you get to those points where it's like, okay, you get to a certain point where you can't run the show anymore. You have to have an operator, right? Like, and then the next thing up, right? Then the operator has departments or whatever, right? So it can get wacky.
So the false belief is every stage is more work.
Right.
That's not actually true. But I think to level up, because we all fill our days with 24 hours of stuff, right? And we all operate from our identity of who we are. So you have to change your identity to get to the next step. So removing all the stuff that you're used to doing, that's hard to do. So leveling up is hard initially, but it's easier once it's solidified. You know what I mean? So it's like now I've gone backwards big time. Like I had to get rid of my whole sales team because of the California stuff. And now in order to get back to where I was would be an incredible amount of work, where it's like, if I would have just stayed where I was at, and let's say none of that stuff did happen, it would just be these incremental steps and it would start compounding like George. It's like it compounds and compounds. So, it's like, it goes back to that whole thing where consistency trumps intensity every day. Like if I listened to this and I was, Jason 6 years ago, I'd be like, dude, I could never get where George is. But I've seen what George has done and I've seen what a bunch of people in our community have done. And it was just like these steps where they just kind of got to that next step. They pushed themselves and boom. And then they're at that level. And then George is always doing that thing. Like, how do I level up? Like I'm going to buy another agency. Okay. Like, even though, you just hired this team and you could just sit there and have the success at that level, you're like, what do I do? And you just add another piece and you add another piece and it just builds over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like compound interest.
It's the eighth wonder of the world, according to Benjamin Franklin.
Super cool. The building.
Yeah. Building is fun. I understand your place because I think we're very similar, and like to peel it all off because somebody else created the situation and now you can't do it. It's very daunting and like to even consider like rebuilding, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
They've set a ceiling. Like you can't.
The math doesn't work.
The math doesn't work. It'll work in 2 to 3 years. So it's like I just sit around I do outside businesses, I guess. So, OBOs, right? Is that what we put on our papers?
Yeah.
OBAs.
OBAs.
So George,
outside business activities.
We've known you the whole journey, right? Like we met you when we were figuring this stuff out. What have you seen or what have you felt like you've changed along the way? Like when you came in, because you did it a little differently. Most people will incrementally scale. And I mean, you did have some incremental, but they were bigger increments. Like I think you started with 8 callers and tons of leads and really diving into how you were doing your, growing your agency. So you started fast and hard and then went from there. But what, like emotionally, how was that for you to where you are now? Like old George. What was old George like? If this version of George that is here now were to talk to that George, how would that guy respond to you? Like, hey, I'm going to be writing $500,000 or
Yeah. Keep it up. Just keep grinding. Yeah. I mean, look, I had some really good perspectives coming in just because, if you got somebody that's coming in with absolutely no experience in the industry, like it's a different perspective. That's why you should always work with a high performing agency or get in the business and do it yourself before trying to jump out and open a whole business up. Right. So I had a vision of like what this could look like. And it's crazy because when I opened it up, it was like 100 items was like, you are just absolutely knocking the ball off the cover.
Yeah.
And, that was what I wanted to do. Right. So that's what we started to do. It took me like 8 months to get to that, and much longer than what I thought I was going to need. But, again, it's just about grinding it out and consistently pushing. But now, like, it's a whole new game. Like, because of how the compensation has been updated, at least for our company, and a lot of carriers are different. They're switching it or moving a lot of that compensation or front loading it to new business. You have to find ways to really scale your new business acquisition, and that's what we've done. We've really taken that in stride. The cash flow works in our market, and it gives us the opportunity to continue to push the needle, and we just want to see how far we can take it. I think it'll be a disservice for the business as a whole and for my leaders and for the salespeople in my office if I didn't try to continue to push the needle, is how I see it.
And you can't buy more beach houses if you don't push it.
Right.
Yes, we can't buy more beach houses.
I mean, whoever's listening to this, you guys have to freaking see the size of George's beach house. I don't think I've ever seen a house this big on the beach.
Oh man, yeah, it's comfortable. It's a good investment property.
It's freaking gigantic. How many square feet? Is it 5,000 square feet or something? 4,000?
It looks like it because it's raised, right? It's in the flood zone on the beach,
yeah.
so it's raised. So it looks like it's 3 stories, but it's really 2 stories. But yeah, it's like 3 or 3,200 or something.
That place is really cool. Really cool place.
Yeah, it's fully booked. We got it booked nearly like 90% from March through October, so we're pretty excited.
Nice.
That's awesome. And what beach is it on?
Navarre Beach. So it's like 30 minutes west of Destin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I had a heck of a time going there.
So hit me up. I'll give you a special deal.
I lost my driver's license before we landed. So tried to get my rental car and the whole thing. Oh my God. What a nightmare.
Craig, you want to make $1 million? Just get a videographer to just follow you.
Yeah,
I know, right? It'd be a lot like of Steve-O or something.
I just watched Jackass 3 actually. We were in Florida for like 2 weeks, and we just saw that. And yeah, it was fun.
That's the only place it was playing. Was in Florida.
Jackass 3.
Florida, man.
Yeah, thanks for the plug for the house. Absolutely.
Yeah,
if you want to bypass property management companies, reach out. Definitely give you a sweet deal on the beach for your family.
I mean, yeah, it's on your Airbnb, I'm sure. Yeah. The link will be in the show notes. Or if you want, just email George. Well, what else? So this is a great corner. What one piece of advice do you have for somebody who has now been an agent for 3 months and is starting to freak out?
Take a deep breath. I mean, seriously, that's really the position I was in when I met you. Honestly, like I was like, holy smokes. I feel like I just got punched in the face by Mike Tyson. But yeah, take a deep breath, connect, get into the communities like this, really try to understand what you have to do to be successful in this business, and then start writing down what your processes are going to look like. Like you have to have a consistent process. If you don't have a consistent process that your team is following, then you have nothing to measure. And if you can't measure it, you can't get better, right? Even if your process doesn't work, right? Like if you have a consistent process that doesn't work, you can pick apart that process and figure out what the root cause is, what's different sections you need to tweak, but you got to have consistency. You can't just let people jump in and start having whatever conversation they want. It doesn't work like that.
Like 90% of the agents, like I did, that's how we did it. We didn't have any processes forever, right? And it's like, what a mess it becomes, you know? And so, I mean, that's, the first few years I had the little manual that they had, but it's outdated. And we didn't follow it. So when people get hired, it's just like free flow. And you don't get anything from that. And it's interesting. Like, that's what I would tell old Craig. If I went back and talked to him, I'd say, hey dude, processes, because you can't remember the next time they ask you, you don't remember how you did it the last time. So then it's different, and every time it's different. And then
it's like going to McDonald's, in Tucson, and then going to McDonald's in Ohio, you get the same Big Mac, right? They have consistent processes and recipes, right? And that's what you need to create in your organization. You can't create a different experience to each prospect and each client. Like, you got to have the same, assuming, top class experience, right? That's what you should expect for your people to provide to the prospects and all the investment that you're putting into this.
Because as one of our former guests, Laura Harris, once said, you cannot scale chaos.
I like that.
Truth.
Well, you can, but it'll be very expensive, and you're going to have a lot more
chaos.
Yeah. Do you want to scale profit, or do you want to scale chaos?
Nice.
And that's a Carb's Corner.
Carb corner.